This is Morning Motivation for Educators on the Bee Podcast Network. Learn about all the shows at beepodcastnetwork.com. You'll hear from a variety of formal and informal educators who help put this podcast together. If you'd like to contribute your voice to the show, please go to morningmotivationedu.com to apply. I am Karen Dudek-Brannan. I was a school SLP for 14 years where I specialized in language literacy and executive functioning and also held various teaching, leadership, and research roles. Now, I am the host of the De facto Leaders podcast on the Bee Podcast Network, where I help school therapists, teachers, and administrators be leaders on their school teams, no matter their job title. One of the most common pieces of advice that's given in most personal development is that you should write down your goals. And of course, this is a good practice. And while you do want to focus on the positive and have a good attitude about things, it's possible to take it too far, and that can actually be quite toxic and not beneficial in the long run. Because one of the most effective ways that we can plan for the future and figure out how to be successful is to think about what could potentially go wrong. Risk mitigation is a huge part of planning for the future, and it can actually be counterproductive to ignore some of these things. The other thing that can be problematic is if you're afraid of talking about things that could potentially go wrong, you're actually creating more negative energy. It is quite possible to write your goals down and then go back and say, what things do I need to do in order to prepare for the unexpected? That can actually be quite empowering, but if you're afraid to talk about it and you're avoiding it, number one, you will be less prepared. Number two, if you have a place where you're getting stuck and you just keep worrying about it, sometimes the most effective way to address it is just to face it head on. This is actually something that is done in cognitive behavioral therapy. There's ways that you can self-question and really get to the bottom of what am I actually afraid of? What is causing me anxiety? Even asking yourself the question of what is the worst possible thing that could happen if I take this risk that I'm thinking about, if I go for this goal. Because sometimes when you actually face it head on, you realize the things that you're worrying about are things you could easily deal with. Accepting that bad things might happen can be quite liberating because sometimes you realize that, yes, bad things might happen, but you have a contingency plan for actually dealing with them. And sometimes if you focus so much on the positive and you create this fear around talking about things that could go wrong, it actually creates more negative energy in the long run. If you approach it with calm, objective energy, knowing that you are going to plan your best for unexpected things that may happen, and not necessarily fixate on them, but make sure you've got a plan in place or that you have a plan B, that's a lot different than ruminating and fixating on things. So if you have some goals that you've written down and you find that you're not acting on them, and maybe you have a lot of anxiety about the things that you need to do in order to get there, I would encourage you to start writing down your fears and figuring out how you can address them head on. Think of it like getting car insurance. When you get in your car to drive to work or go wherever you need to go, you're probably not thinking about getting into a car accident, but you got insurance because you wanted to plan for the unexpected and make sure that you're as prepared as possible if something does happen. Sometimes thinking about things that could go wrong is what can actually free you up to focus on the goals that you do have. If you are an educator, a school leader, or a therapist, and you want to know how you can be more effective at work, check out the De facto Leaders podcast, where we talk about all kinds of topics related to leadership and professional development, like I discussed today. To check out all the episodes, you can go to defactoleaders.com. Thanks for listening, and whatever role you have in education, we have a podcast for you at beepodcastnetwork.com. Who among your friends and colleagues needs to hear this message today? Please share it with them right now.